Today I will be discussing the intent, implementation and impact of a unit of work on natural sculptures in art and design. I'll explain the inspirations, key decisions made in the planning stage, the skills and knowledge that I want my students to learn, and the impact I predict this sequence of lessons will have on my Year 2 class. I decided to focus on natural sculptures for this unit of work because the majority of children have been in lockdown this academic year. I decided it was important to get the children outside exploring and observing nature to develop their artistic skills and techniques to encourage students to use their imaginations when making their sculptures. Osha describes the importance of imagination in the development of children's understanding of the world. She says, Einstein stated knowledge is limited and that imagination is needed to extend knowledge further, by pushing boundaries that are set by what we already know. She goes on to discuss how having a base knowledge to work from is vital and that practice must be adapted to always be inclusive. Similarly, Sir Ken Robinson talks about the importance of imagination in education in his infamous 2006 TED Talk, Do Schools Kill Creativity? He said, imagination is the source of every form of human achievement and is the one thing that I believe we're systematically jeopardizing in the way we educate our children and ourselves. This struck me as a multilingual learner growing up in the UK. I found my experience of school to be a difficult one. I found the core subjects boring and challenging to understand. However, I found my element in all forms of the arts. I went on to do a BA in special effects makeup, where sculpture was a key skill I developed, thus my interest in planning for this skill. The arts excited and inspired me to learn. I believe they were equally as important as core subjects to the development of children as well-rounded human beings, yet they are continuously undermined and less time is given to these subjects. In my opinion, this means that we are failing to deliver a truly inclusive curriculum. The national curriculum calls for students to learn about great artists and understand the cultural development of their art forms. I learnt about the importance of this in Watt's article Encounters with the Unexpected, where he says that artists' work can be used not only as a stimulus for practical art activities, but also as an instrument for learning across the curriculum. He goes on to talk about the positive impacts that studying another artist's work can have on the imagination and creativity of students. With this in mind, I decided to include the work of Andy Goldsworthy, a British sculptor who uses natural resources to create transient pieces of artwork within my sequence of lessons to use as a source of inspiration and for discussion. The artwork you can see on the screen are some of my favourite pieces that I plan to show the class throughout the sequence of lessons. I chose these because I was inspired by the shapes, materials and textures of these pieces, and I hope that my enthusiasm would transfer to the students and be seen in their final pieces. Furthermore, I was interested in the use of natural resources as they are accessible to all. They are free, and I also wanted to plan lessons which could be easily adapted for home learning in the event of another lockdown. I will now discuss my intent for this sequence of lessons. I will discuss what I wanted the students to learn and take away from these lessons in terms of knowledge and skills. I was aware the sequence of lessons needed to develop in difficulty, allowing children to comprehend concepts on a basic level before developing them in order to secure their understanding. Bloom's taxonomy exemplifies this. It suggests that students should move up the taxonomy as they develop their knowledge. The lower order cognitive skills, being knowledge and comprehension, are more concrete and basic skill set, while further up, the higher order cognitive skills, being analysis and evaluation, are more abstract and therefore challenging to access. I applied the taxonomy to my planning. In the first lesson, we started at the remembering and understanding stages of the taxonomy. Children will develop their Children will develop through studying Goldsworthy's work, gathering materials and sorting them from different features. This also links to the prior learning in mathematics, which nods to cross-curricular benefits of art and design. As the lessons progress, we will identify features of Goldsworthy's work. They will be asked to discuss and analyse his work as well as their own, identify materials used, and create their own work inspired by their learning, thus moving up the taxonomy scale. In the final lessons, students will create their own sculpture using sustainable natural materials from the school's grounds. They will work in teams, applying their knowledge and skills as well as develop their reasoning and negotiation skills. They will then have an exhibition where they will be asked to reflect and evaluate on the features of their peers' work in a critical but kind manner, therefore moving to the top of the taxonomy using their higher order cognitive skills. The spiral curriculum proposed by Bruner in 1977 states that by revisiting previous learning of various degrees of difficulties, children will be able to access more complex themes and concepts. In recognition of this, I looked back at last year's planning. I found that students had previously learned about collage and printing using natural materials. I chose to include collage with this sequence of lessons to further develop their fine motor skills and to explore texture and patterns of different materials. Could they create sculptures without the use of adhesive? Could they study the patterns that appear both on the materials and from their final pieces? This allowed children to build upon their prior knowledge with increasing complexity of skill, thus engaging with Bruner's spiral curriculum. Through this sequence of lessons, the students will be developing a variety of skills which have been carefully considered to promote engagement, inspire and challenge pupils, equipping them with the knowledge and skills to experiment, invent and create their own works of art, craft and design, as stated by the DFE 2013. It alludes to the impact of art and design on history, culture and creativity, not only as students but also as a wider society. In order to promote inclusive practice and engage all pupils, I have planned exciting yet challenging activities. They will therefore participate actively and be in the moment. In her book, Teaching Primary Art and Education and Design, Oja says, the ability to communicate and express emotions, ideas, relate to others, accept feedback, give an opinion, make a comment, agree or disagree, are all important, and we start developing these as children. These are key skills I wish to develop with my class. The aesthetic and holistic nature of the activities will lead to well-rounded students. A common problem in art and design is that students believe they cannot do art or that they are not creative. In their book, Teaching Art and Design 3 to 11, Cox and Watts argue that effective planning can ensure that with the limited time allocated, it must be used effectively in order to provide students with a valuable art education. But to do this requires more time, thought and reflection in our planning. It is my intent that through working in teams, children will be uplifted by the support of their peers and will be less likely to feel negatively throughout. This approach is also underpinned by Vygotsky's social constructivist theory, whereby students work on a social and individual level to develop their skills. It's also an opportunity to praise students who perhaps might find accessing learning in other lessons difficult and therefore boosting their morale. I will now discuss the implementation of this unit of work and the critical decisions I had to make. When planning our lessons, we were asked to implement 3 critical decisions to our planning in order to observe and assess the development of students effectively. I decided to ask my school if they would allow me 2 hours for these lessons in order to give students sufficient time to properly develop their skills, knowledge and understanding, as well as experiment. There has been a cutback in allocated time for foundation students to allow more emphasis on so-called core subjects, Hickman 2005. The impact of this means that students will not have a balanced, inclusive curriculum and will fail to benefit from all the cross-curricular opportunities that can be gained from learning in art and design. Rather, they will have a superficial and rushed experience which could lead to disengagement and demoralisation. Eisner states, if children's artwork is exclaimed in the social rather than in individual terms, it becomes more apparent that what they will learn when working on a painting or sculpture is not simply what they will learn about dealing with material. It's also a function of what they learn from others as they become members of the community. Therefore, I decided to allow students the opportunity to not only choose where they wanted to sit during the activities, but also to work with whomever they like. I made this decision in order for students to enthuse and also support each other. This will help boost their confidence and engage them in their task. In order to maintain effective classroom management, I have decided to play calming music in the background while we are working in the classroom. As art is an exciting subject for children, I have allowed them to sit with their friends, I felt it was necessary to decide on how I would attempt to manage this. Hickman describes art as a kind of therapy, and I wanted to allow the students to reap the benefits of using music as a device for promoting a calm and focused environment. According to the National Centre of Safe Supportive Learning Environments, some of the benefits can be seen on your screen now, including reduced anxiety and stress, improvement of concentration and engagement. It can even enhance the way that students process language and speech, which goes a long way to promoting good health and well-being, as well as inclusivity. Finally, I will discuss the impact I predict this unit of work will have on my students. I will discuss how pupils' learning in the unit will be assessed and how it will provide evidence of their progress. Assessment in art and design can be a contentious subject, as teachers will often tell their students there is no right or wrong in art. Well, if this is the case, how can we assess students? I decided to assess my students using a mixture of on-the-spot assessment by using questioning designed to help me assess their knowledge and understanding through self-evaluations and a spreadsheet that can track the students' learning in order to help me evaluate the impact of this unit of work. In Watts' article, Responding to Children's Drawings, Watts discusses the importance of on-the-spot assessment, genuine interest in pupils' work, and suggestion of how it might be improved. Through the use of questioning as opposed to superficial comments which do not offer any opportunities for development. In the 2008 Ofsted report, Making a Mark, inspectors found that the effective assessment that underpinned good and outstanding progress seen in schools was based on a dialogue between teachers and students during the lessons. Therefore, I will make use of carefully constructed questions not only to promote the development through the lessons, but also to assess the pupils' knowledge and understanding. In the final lesson, students will have a chance to demonstrate peer appreciation. Hickman 2005 puts forward the notion that a key aim in art education should be noticing. He says, visual education must surely concern itself with drawing attention to the subtleties of the visual world, which includes the intriguing, the interesting, the arresting, and the beautiful. Students will therefore have the opportunity to really observe, analyse, and constructively comment on their peers' work before reflecting and evaluating their own. This will develop their higher order cognitive skills as well as other skills they will develop throughout this sequence and round off this unit of work nicely. In order to track progress, I have adapted a spreadsheet that is quick and easy for me to assess children's progress against the learning objectives and success criteria. The data I input will be assessed against the student-teacher interaction and self-evaluations. The spreadsheet will provide evidence for my records by calculating the percentages the students have achieved. Using the spreadsheet, I will clearly be able to see areas of development for the students which I will reflect upon and incorporate in my future practice. Thank you for listening.